Okay, is this clear, students? Okay, what other questions do you have? What other questions do you have, students? Was this Marshall error condition thing clear? What are the questions? Yeah, may request you. Okay, great. Yeah. What are the questions? Any topic, anything that's bothering you? Okay, again, it's not very complicated concept of the range. That's a good question. Think about this. So how balance of payment will auto-correct in floating exchange rate? Exactly. Now, this is known as automatic stabilization, right? Now, students, listen to this carefully. So the question is asking about that how would free floating exchange rate, so this is exactly what we have right now discussed, right? Think about this. So Arvab, listen to this carefully, right? So the question that Abdul Rahim has asked, explain how balance of payment will auto-correct in floating exchange rate, right? So this concept is known as automatic stabilization. Now, what it does actually is think about this. On one hand, you have the exchange rate. What is exchange rate? Exchange rate is the value of one currency in terms of another currency, right? What is balance of payment? Balance of payment is a document that records international transactions of a country, and mainly the two major accounts in balance of payments are the trade in goods and trade in services, which are about the trade performance of a country, which is about the trade performance of a country. Okay, now listen to this. Just answer this question of mine that now if Pakistan's exchange rate is the weakest in recent history, if Pakistan's exchange rate is weakest, right, in the recent history, how would that affect our balance of payments? Did you get my question? So as I was telling you later today that Pakistan's exchange rate is weakest in recent history. How would that affect our balance of payment and why? Right? Now listen to this carefully. Let's assume we have free floating exchange rate, right? That is, imports are expensive. Yeah, imports. Arbab, you did not get the question. Think about this. So we had deficit. That's why our exchange rate became weaker, right? Forget about why the exchange rate became weaker in the first place. Just think from the point where right now our exchange rate is weakest in the recent history, right? So for the past 10 or 11 years, our exchange rate has never been this weak. Is everyone following? Right? Now this being said, how would now our exports and imports be affected? How would now our exports and imports be affected? Would our exports become cheaper? Yes or no? Do you agree with me or not? Our exports will become cheaper, so the demand for our exports will increase, and our imports will become expensive, and their demand will decrease, right? So long story short, whenever a country's exchange rate becomes weaker, so export revenue increases, the demand for exports increases. Obviously, there are some factors involved. Like you should have a large variety of goods to export. Should have good quality of products that you're exporting and all that stuff. But you do understand the basic point. And our import expenditure would fall because imported goods are more expensive for us. Any confusion so far? When this happens, Abdul Rahim, when this has happened, right? When this has happened, that due to weaker exchange rate, we start exporting more and we start importing less. How would we show that on the graph? How would we show that on the graph? So on the graph, our demand will shift rightwards. The demand for our currency will shift rightwards, and the supply of currency will shift leftwards. Yes or no? Is everyone following me or not? Exchange rate was weakest, right? Then, as the result, the demand for our exports increased because our products became more, more competitive. So demand for our exports increased, and the supply of our imports decreased. Our imports decreased because for us imported goods are more expensive, right? So originally this was the equilibrium point. This was your exchange rate where 1 rupee was, let's say, buying half a dollar. With this happening, with what happening? With this happening, weaker exchange rate, more export revenue, less import expenditure. So our demand for currency increased. So that shifted from D1 to D2, right? And our supply decreased because now we're importing less because imports are more expensive for us. Now the new exchange rate would be where the new supply curves intersects with the new demand curve. So that would be at this point. So it would be where the new demand and new supply curves intersect. So that is basically, think about this. Our exchange rate has become stronger. Is everyone clear on this so far? Yes, very good, Abdul. Demand increases, supply decrease. Yes, absolutely, right? Is everyone clear on this right now? Now, once our exchange rate has become stronger, now again, our products will become more expensive. Now, again, our products will become more expensive. So this entire cycle will reverse then. Are you getting me or not? Now, this entire cycle will reverse, right? Right? So we just talked about this. Aslam, inflation, if there is higher inflation, your exchange rate will depreciate. So simply to answer your question, higher inflation in Pakistan will depreciate our exchange rate because our exports will be less attractive. Our exports will be less attractive. That is what you need to remember, right? So the two have opposite relationship. Higher the inflation rate, lower the value of exchange rate, meaning depreciation, and vice versa. Right? Okay. Now, does it make sense? So who wrote the circulation thing? Yes. Now it will go in circles. Students, are you getting me? So that is the reason. Think about this. China keeps its exchange rate always weak because it knows, because if in 1 year it had a surplus on its balance of payment, which means that it exported more. So if one period, if China is exporting more and importing less because the exchange rate was weaker, now in the next year, it will do what? In the next period, it will appreciate China's yuan, and then China will lose its competitiveness, right? So this is automatic stabilization, automatic auto correction, as we say. But since China doesn't want that, and China wants always to be exporting more and importing less, so every year they artificially try to, which we call devaluation. They keep their exchange rate devalued. They do devaluation, keeping the exchange rate weaker. So that is the entire concept. Students, how many of you are understanding this? Right? So this is auto correction. Weak exchange rate, you start exporting more, importing less, your balance of payment improves. But once that happens, your exchange rate becomes stronger. When it becomes stronger, then you will import less. When you import less, when it becomes exchange rate becomes stronger, your balance of payment goes into deficit. Then again, your exchange rate will get weaker, and then so on and so forth. And it will continue in circles. Appreciate exports will become expensive. Yeah, so people will import more. Right. So when exchange rate appreciates, exports will be expensive. So exports will be less and people will import more. Right? Abdurrahim, with this happening, I just explained you, right? That your exchange rate has become stronger. So initially it was weaker. Think about it. Our exchange rate was weaker. We started exporting more because our products are cheaper for foreign countries and our imports are expensive, right? And we started importing less. With that happening, the demand curve for our currency increased, the supply curve or supply of our currency decreased, our exchange rate became weaker. When our exchange rate became weaker, now again our products will become less competitive. Again, our products will become less competitive. So this means in the next period, we export less and import more. And again, the cycle goes on and on and on. Right. So, Arbab, so all you have to understand, think about this, simple. Just think about it, speculation thing. Think about it, students. So speculation happens if today people are betting. A lot of people invest in currencies as an instrument. A lot of people buy foreign currencies for investment purposes, which is called forex trading. Now, what do these people do is that they would want to hold any currency that they think is becoming stronger in the coming future. So if people think that dollars will become more strong against Pakistani rupees, what they will do? They will start buying dollars. When they start buying dollars, because people were anticipating that dollar will become stronger, automatically when more people buy dollars, it will become stronger. How many of you got me over here? So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Does it make sense? Abdul Rahim, you're still not getting it. I'll take one more try. I'll take one more try. Just give me a second. Right? So speculation, just think about this. Students, just think about this. So what happens in the case of speculation, right? So in the case of speculation, when people think that dollar will become stronger, right? What would they do? And these are the people who invest in currencies as an investment instrument. So they'll start buying dollars, right? And people are thinking that dollars will become stronger. Most people are speculating on that, predicting that, buying dollars. So they'll start buying more dollars. When they start buying more dollars in the international market, the demand for dollars will increase. And when the demand for dollars increase, automatically dollars will become stronger against rupees. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Are you getting me? So if you constantly think self-fulfilling prophecy basically means that if there's a student who thinks that tomorrow they will mess up their exam, right? What will that do? If you think that tomorrow you mess up your exam, there is a high chance that you will really mess up your exams because right? Because you will start taking stress, you'll start thinking about it, and even things that you did knew on the exam, since you were stressed, since you were under pressure, you will make those things wrong. And that is what happens. So same goes for speculation. What people are speculating, that will most probably come true because that is the side on which they're betting. Right? Yeah, I also hope so. Okay, so people buy at low prices and sellers at higher price, like people will buy dollars, and as more people will buy dollars, and dollars demand increases or depreciate. Exactly. So that's the idea. Exactly. Is on thinking opinion. No, speculation, I mean, that depends on a lot of things. There's few big players, right? There are few big players who tell people, right? And they are influencers, as we say, influencers. So if I'm a very renowned investor in Pakistan, I have a YouTube channel, I tell people that, dollar will appreciate against Pakistani rupees. So everyone would be like, oh, Qasim said that, let's start buying that, right? So then this happens. So there are few market forces that are, what is that called? That are influencing the people action and so on, right? But yeah, and sometimes people just hearsay, right? So I heard you saying that dollar will appreciate, I tell my other friend, and we start believing the same thing, and and so on, and that is our speculation. Simple. So just like people started speculating that the gold prices will go up during COVID, so more people started started buying gold, and eventually it did go up. And then, but not always. Most of the time speculation is true, but not always. Okay, now Abdul Rahim, think about this. So long story short, now let's try to sum this up. It should not be very difficult and you are confusing yourself. Think about this. Weaker exchange rate. Just you tell me now. When there's a weaker exchange rate, how will your balance of payment change? If let's say you have weak exchange rate, we know Pakistan's exchange rate, this is starting point one, right? So if right now we have weak exchange rate, how will that affect our balance of payment? What would it do to our exports? What would it do to our imports? Yeah, that's the simple question. If our exchange rate is weaker right now, what would it do to our exports? What would it do to our imports? Surplus as exports increases. Very good, right? So exports are going up, but imports are also going down. Imports are going down now. देखें, imports भी तो $1 is buying you previously 100 rupees. ठीक है जी, मैं अमेजोन से बाय करता था, मैं $100 देता था, $1 की चीज ले लेता था. अब हमारा एक्सचेंज रेट चल रहा है $1 is equals to 172 rupees. अब मुझे 172 rupees देने पड़ते हैं $1 खरीदने के लिए, right? For me, the same price good in USA, which is $1, I have to give more rupees. So for me, that is more expensive. So my imports will fall. Easy, कोई मसला, कोई परेशानी. जब ये हो गया है, उसके बाद क्या होगा, right? उसके बाद क्या होगा? Students, think about this. Weaker exchange rate, उसने क्या किया? उसने आपके एक्सपोर्ट ज्यादा कर दिए, इंपोर्ट्स कम कर दिए. इसकी वजह से अब एक्सचेंज रेट कैसे इफेक्ट होगा? पूरा साइकिल चल रहा है ना, पूरा साइकिल चल रहा है. अब ये जब हो गया, इसके बाद एक्सचेंज रेट कैसे इफेक्ट होगा? कौन मुझे बताएगा? जब ज्यादा आप एक्सपोर्ट कर रहे हैं और इंपोर्ट कम कर रहे हैं, तो डिमांड आपकी करेंसी की ऊपर जा रही है और सप्लाई आपकी करेंसी की डिक्रीज कर रही है. तो इसकी वजह से एक्सचेंज रेट क्या होगा? Exchange rate, what will happen to your exchange rate then? So you had weaker exchange rate, You started exporting more, importing less, and then your exchange rate appreciated again. Excellent. दोबारा appreciate हो गया. अब आपकी products क्या होंगी? Less attractive होगी. Less attractive होगी ना, क्योंकि महंगा हो गया आपका exchange rate, आपको पता ही है. आपके exports महंगे हो गए हैं, imports सस्ते हो गए हैं, तो आप export कम करेंगे, import ज़्यादा करेंगे, तो right, फिर आपका balance of payment deficit में चला जाएगा, और फिर so this is this entire cycle that goes again and again. That is known as auto correction. Right? So exchange rate is causing a change in balance of payment, and then balance of payment causes a change in exchange rate. So it's so on, right? So weaker exchange rate की वजह से balance of payment आपका balance of payment improve करेगा, लेकिन फिर उसकी वजह से आपका exchange rate फिर strong हो जाएगा. जब strong हो जाएगा तो फिर आपका balance of payment जो है वो worsen हो जाएगा, and so on and so forth. Right? So इसी तरह जैसे अभी हमने ये बात की थी ना, वो खैर पिक्चर चलेगी, कि जैसे मार्शल लर्निंग कंडीशन है. मार्शल लर्निंग कंडीशन में क्या होता है? मार्शल लर्निंग कंडीशन में क्या होता है? आपके पास जब आपका एक्सचेंज रेट वीक होता है तो यू मूव फ्रॉम डेफिसिट टू अ सरप्लस. इसी तरह एक इन्वर्टेड जे कर्व भी होता है, राइट? ऑपोजिट ऑफ दैट. सो ऑपोजिट ऑफ मार्शल लर्निंग कंडीशन वुड बी व्हेन योर एक्सचेंज रेट इज बिकमिंग स्ट्रॉन्गर. मार्शल लर्निंग में आपका एक्सचेंज रेट वीकर हो रहा था ना, जब आपका एक्सचेंज रेट स्ट्रॉन्गर हो रहा होगा तो देन इट वुड हैव एन ऑपोजिट इफेक्ट, राइट? सो इनिशियली आपका जो सरप्लस है बैलेंस ऑफ पेमेंट में थोड़ा सा इंक्रीज करेगा, इट विल हिट द हाईएस्ट पॉइंट एंड देन विल स्टार्ट टू डिक्रीज. व्हाई? because now your products are more expensive and imports cheaper, right? So inverted J curve, this is known as inverted J curve, which shows you opposite situation of what happens compared to Marshall learning condition. So ये Marshall learning condition थी जिसको आप J curve कहते हैं, and the other one that I showed. So Marshall learning condition कब होगी? जब आपका exchange rate weak हो रहा है और आपका बैलेंस ऑफ पेमेंट डेफिसिट से सरप्लस में जा रहे हैं. इन्वर्टेड जे कर्व क्या शो करेगा? जब आपका एक्सचेंज रेट स्ट्रांग हो रहा है and you are moving from surplus to a deficit. That's all. That's what you need to explain. That's what you need to know. Any other last minute questions, students? How much confident do you feel about tomorrow's exam? How much confident are you feeling for tomorrow's exam? And what is your strategy? Do you want to spend the night revising? Do you want to stop revising and then take some rest? Micro prep is better. Okay, nothing about this. So students, some important, right. Arbab, I would not suggest you that, because think about this. I don't know how you have done your other exams. लेकिन देखिए एक जो mental, जो मैं बात करते हैं कि एक mental जो है ना, when you obviously it's difficult, you might feeling stressed and you might not get the same type of sleep, but do try to get at least 4 or 5 hours of sleep, at least 4 or 5 hours of sleep, right? Because all research shows that when you are sleeping, and that helps you retain it better, because 9 a.m. you have your exam, and till 9 a.m. they are still 12 hours, right? So if you are still up, that will be taking your energy, so you might be feeling drained during the exam, but do take some rest. अच्छा जी, पहली चीज. दूसरी चीज, अब आप लोग ये करें कि just रिवाइज भी कर लें नोट्स. वैसे अगर आपने कुछ रहता है वो भी कर ले सकते हैं आप. दूसरी चीज आप ये कर सकते हैं कि you just go and open the past paper questions, right? And try to do those orally, right? तो अभी तो आपके पास time नहीं है कि you will be answering all of that in full-fledged form, right? Don't do that. That will take a lot of time. Just open your past paper questions and go over those one by one. See if there is any difficult term or concept that comes your way, right? And if so, just drop me a message on the WhatsApp and I'll answer that. Right. ठीक है. और कल जो आपने करना है, just I will answer that. कल जो आपने करना है, first things first, right? Case study अगर आप पहले कर लें, मेरे ख्याल से that would be better, because all the time you can quickly do your case study and then come to the essay question, and you will feel more relaxed to attempt your essay question and all that, right? But for both case study and essay question, the trick is that read it carefully, make sure you read it 2 to 3 times to make sure that you are answering exactly what the question was asking for, right? और ऐसे क्वेश्चंस में तीनों क्वेश्चंस को, दोनों पार्ट्स को स्ट्रॉन्ग मतलब के केयरफुली पढ़ें और देखें जो आपको बेस्ट आता है, अटेम्प्ट दैट एंड डू मेक अ रफ स्केच. तो अगर कोई भी क्वेश्चन आया हुआ है, क्वेश्चन 1 आया हुआ है, दैट इज अबाउट लेट्स से एनीथिंग, राइट? एक्सचेंज रेट पे या कुछ भी, तो मेक सम बुलेट पॉइंट्स. आंसर शीट के ऊपर ही बुलेट पॉइंट्स आप बना सकते हैं कि इसके अंदर क्या क्या आर्गुमेंट्स आएंगे, क्या क्या मैंने लिखना है, राइट। शॉर्ट फॉर्म नहीं होता, ताकि आपको एक पूरा एक स्केच बन जाए कि उस ऐसे क्वेश्चन में आपने क्या लिखना है, एंड देन स्टार्ट आंसरिंग दैट, राइट। राइट, मे बी या कैन हैपन, लेकिन ये भी हो सकता है कि इतनी दफा उन्होंने पूछा तो वो अगली दफा पूछे ही ना, राइट। एक सेकंड मुझे दें, सो लेट मी आंसर योर टर्म्स ऑफ ट्रेड क्वेश्चन, जस्ट गिव मी अ मिनट। Okay, now students, have a look at this. Have a look at this. For terms of trade, what you have to do is, terms of trade is what? Index of export prices divided by index of import prices. So how much are your export prices in relation to your import prices, right? That is what you have to talk about, right? If your export prices are increasing faster than your import prices, I'm just explaining you in very simple and easy words, and you do not need to make it any more complicated than this. If over time your export prices have increased more, right? And there could be different reasons for that. So why were your export prices more? We'll come to it in a bit, but first of all, understand this. So in base year, your terms of trade, just like any other index, always have a value of 100. It always have a value of 100. If it moves anywhere above 100, let's say 110. Now, what does 110 shows? 110 would show that your terms of trade increased, or you can also use the word it became more favorable. Why did it become more favorable? Because your export prices increased much faster, your export prices increase much faster compared to your import prices. So that is what improvement in terms of trade is. That's a favorable movement because your exports, which are your revenue generating thing, they are becoming, right? They are increasing more in value, not in value, sorry. Their prices are increasing more compared to the import prices. So this is favorable movement, right? And if your terms of trade drops from 100 to, let's say, something less, 90, 98, 95, anything less than the base year value, that is unfavorable movement because it shows the opposite, that your import prices were increasing at a faster rate compared to your export prices. Is making sense? So it's very good, excellent, right? So that would be unfavorable movement. Okay, now think about this. Favorable movement is only telling you that now you can export less quantity, right? And still make same amount of revenue. I repeat, favorable movement where your export prices are increasing faster, where your export prices are increasing faster than your import prices, would mean that with favorable movement, you can export less quantity. Because think about this, what are the products that Pakistan export? Wheat items, sports equipment and all that stuff. So if those are becoming expensive, so we will get more revenue, most probably. But that also depends on other factors, whether we have more price elasticity of demand or less. So if our price elasticity of demand is inelastic, then it's good, then it's great. But if our price elasticity of demand for exports is more elastic, then more expensive products would mean that we would export less. Right. In this case, we are not considering the value or the volume. In this case of the name, in terms of trade, we are not talking about the value. Value is recorded in balance of payment. Volume is also not written over here. It's only showing the prices. But based on the prices, we know that it will affect your quantity. Yes or no? As I was telling you, right? So if your exports prices are increasing, that can be a good thing if the demand for your exports is inelastic. If your export prices are increasing and you have more elastic demand for your exports, which means that people are more price sensitive, then it would be a bad thing. Right? Are you getting me? Right? Similarly, for the import prices, if import prices are increasing and the demand for your imports is less elastic, then that is a bad thing. So if even if oil is getting expensive and that has inelastic demand, which you have, which means it's a necessity, you have to import no matter what. So that would be a bad thing, right? But if your import prices are increasing, but the demand for your imports is more elastic, then obviously you will switch and you will find cheaper options, right? So this means favorable movement, this means unfavorable movement, but you can still not say whether this will necessarily result in better balance of payments. You can't say that. So if your terms of trade is improving, so what I'm trying to say over here, it doesn't necessarily means that it will improve your balance of payment. Not necessarily, right? It depends on the elasticities. It depends on the elasticity, but it's only called favorable because of the fact that now at least for each unit that you export, each unit that you export will get you more value. Per unit, the price is higher. So this means each unit of the export that you export. So if Pakistan is exporting footballs and now prices of exports of footballs is increasing in the market. If the price of exports which Pakistan exports is increasing in the market, in the world market, shouldn't that be a good thing for us? Shouldn't that be a good thing for us? It should be, right? And similarly, if the things that we import, like oil, or let's say the thing that we import are phones, cars, shoes, clothes, are decreasing, shouldn't that be a good thing? That is a good thing. But that also depends on the elasticity. Any confusion? Right? And then what you can do, Abdul Rahim, send me a specific question. Send me a specific question. Right. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. So if price of exports is high, then we can export less quantity to finance the same imports, to finance the same quantity of imports. Yes, absolutely. That's correct. So I would say, send me a question. I'm up till 12. Send me, if any one of you have a problem, do not ask me for a concept because I won't be able to explain. Send me a specific question that you want me to answer, and I'll send you a voice message explaining how to do that. Is this simple? Is it simple, students? So that is what you need to do, right? Okay, so I'll see you tomorrow then, right? In groups or separate, any you can also send me an individual question in groups. Group is also fine. I'll be checking the group. If you want to send me separately, that's also fine, right? Right? Till 12, right? So take care. Best of luck. As I told you, do not stress out. Read the question carefully and then attempt, right? You guys should be good. Take care. Best of luck. And then do let me know tomorrow after your exam that how did it go, right? Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. Take care. Allah Hafiz.